We've got to keep an eye on the waiting room.
There's Kurt.
There's Kurt. Hello,
Morning.
Kurt.
Good morning.
Okay, so we do have a quorum. It's 10:02. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And I know we've all got the list of attendees, participants, so I think Rachel's good there. And item 2, approval of the agenda then.
And I can share that. Hold on a second. I'll get back to it again.
I'm just bringing my stuff back up here.
Should be able to see it now.
There we go.
There it is.
Oh, I goofed things up.
Looks like everybody's having a seizure.
I just goofed my screen up here.
Does anybody have any changes to the agenda?
Not I.
No. There we go. So I would move that we accept the agenda then.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to accept the agenda as presented. Any further discussion on the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Motion passes. Item 3, approval of meeting minutes from July 8th.
I'd move for the approval of the minutes from July 8th. This is Kurt.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. Troy.
Okay, Troy seconded.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Minutes are approved. Item 4, do we have any public comment? And I'm checking our chat box, participant list, looking for any hands raised, not seeing any. So it's looking like no public comment. If that's the case, move on to item 5, payables. Has everybody had a chance to review the payables?
Move approval of the payables.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to approve payables. Any discussion on the payables
I
presented?
had one question. What was that invoice for Harmony Law Office?
So we
Who
had
are they?
they are a firm out of Vancouver. We had a situation where an L&I claim for PTSD was made on a previous employee,
Okay.
and our through Wallstead Merchant, we were using Nicole Tiedemann before, and she had a conflict with the client.
Okay.
So we reached out at her suggestion to them, and they helped us through that.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on payables? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, payables are approved. Item 6, financial report.
So I have it on the screen. Let me know when you want to go from one section to the next. Rachel can give the report. And then we also have a sales tax update following this page.
And as a heads up, Rachel, your microphone is, your audio is coming through pretty light, at least on my end.
Yeah, me too.
Let me see if I can turn it up. Or maybe just turn my voice up.
Just louder
We
clicking.
can hear you pushing the button for sure, but
Okay, but I'm not louder.
yeah,
Nope.
didn't
You're-
change anything.
barely audible.
Let me see.
I can hear you through my door better than I can through the.
Have to use your outside voice, Rachel.
Hold on. I'm gonna call in using my phone. 'Cause that's as loud as my speaker will go.
Oh, in the meantime, while she's coming through, we could, if there's any questions on the revenues, I can scroll down after they've been reviewed.
You know, from my perspective, Phil, I think probably the most important is to talk a little bit about the sales tax and what you're seeing there.
Yeah, so in our first report, you know, the March that we got in, the first report in June was 8% down. And we had anticipated about a 15% reduction for that month because we were half the month in the COVID shutdown. And then we had anticipated that we'd be 30% down through October every month. And then our June report, which would have been the payables or the collections in April, we were 11% up from last year. And then our August report, 1st of August report, which would be in the payables for May, we were 18% up from last year. So still calculating where we're at currently to date with a continued 30% reduction through October and then 15% in November and December. We are, if that was to go completely that way, we would be 1% above last year. So we're tracking the same as we were last year, right around $2 million in sales tax revenue. I don't expect anymore that it'll be a 30% reduction. It's just so hard to know where that reduction is going to be because it seems like at some point the bottom will fall out somewhere with continued shutdowns and that type of thing. But we haven't seen that. I don't know if anybody else is seeing that in their numbers either.
So we're seeing exactly the same thing, Phil. I mean, the numbers are a little different, the percentages and such, but I was hoping you could explain it.
Well,
I certainly can't.
I can explain it, Kurt, this way in that it's people are spending a lot of money that is sales tax, and we're collecting that sales tax.
Right. No, I know.
I know where it's coming from. It's all that toilet paper people bought and were hoarding.
It's Amazon is where it's coming from, but yeah.
I've talked to Terry Sinkler recently. He's a commissioner for District 5, but also owns Unique RV.
Right.
And their RVs they can't keep them in the lot.
Yeah.
And I could understand why that was. He said his inventory is somewhere around 200 usually, and they're around 40 now in their lot. And he said people aren't going on cruises, people aren't going on trips, but they still want to get out. And so that's his explanation for it.
And the ones that aren't traveling are doing home improvement projects, and Lowe's and Home Depot are just killing it.
And they do not have any treated lumber in their store, by the way.
Right. I didn't know that, but
I went back there. I thought, well, something happened. You know, there was and the guy said, yeah, you can't find it anywhere.
yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
So,
Hey, Kurt, I had a question for your projections. Are you guys thinking that possibly because of the unemployment increase for all these people, since that was taken away, but then now there's an executive order, that may be why our sales tax isn't getting hit so hard? Do you think it's going to get hit harder when they cut it off?
You know, obviously, I think all of that, plays a role, certainly. But, I think we need to be a little careful with looking at some of these numbers because, if you look at locally, and I know, our unemployment rates are always higher than, those of the state. But generally, if you just, kind of look around, I mean, the industries that we see hardest hit with the unemployment numbers currently in our community are those in the, restaurant and food industry, certainly, and the hotel industry. And quite frankly, neither of those really are significant in the overall retail sales tax generation within our community. So it's really hard to say, like I say, some of our big box stores, they're seeing unprecedented business in terms of their receipts with regard to activity. So, it's really hard to gauge, what impact all of this will have, as we continue to work through it.
So in the meantime, it's good news, but
Yeah.
we're holding our breath while that good news is continuing and trying to ask as many questions we can about, why is it this way? Real estate market is extremely hot.
Yep.
And, buildings happening. It's not only here, but across the country. At one time, a realtor said it's just, Cowlitz County is kind of in this little special bubble, but I don't see that the real estate market is soft anywhere.
Oh,
I talked to somebody in Minnesota recently and said they can't keep inventory.
Kurt, I know auto sales was always a fairly significant thing for
it
you
is.
folks. Is that still staying pretty good, or?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen a big dip there,
Okay.
and just anecdotally, I've heard that inventories are difficult to keep up. That doesn't necessarily mean that auto sales are going through the roof, but I think some of that comes from the production end,
Yeah.
with COVID and such. I believe, a lot of those manufacturers seen an impact there and perhaps had a little slowdown. So, it's kept the demand up, I guess, on the other end of it.
Okay. Phil, one other question on the revenue side. We showed the grant down there at the very bottom. Is that the one that we just decided not to go with?
Yes.
Okay.
That'll have to be a budget amendment. When we
Right.
get to the end of the
Right.
year.
I just couldn't remember if there was another grant out there as well, but
Nope, that's the one.
okay.
Okay, expenditures.
So we have the operating expenditures on the screen now. We're tracking, we're in good shape on our expenditures. Some of it still is our budgeted labor is, our expenditures aren't as much because we're not staffed with all the FTEs that we're budgeted for. So.
In our technology and software, we are going to have a big hit in that when we pay for our Intergraph. We just haven't been invoiced yet. Usually comes in September, and that's our big cost out of that line.
And then am I seeing, lodging was budgeted at 32. Was that all for training, expected training, travel?
It was. It's been hit significantly from COVID, so all of our
Right.
stuff's been kind of canceled out. So
Yeah. So we don't expect anything else on top of that 3625.
Yeah, we have a little bit because we do have some mandatory training for some of our new people for Tele 1 and Tele 2. That'll be happening in September and October. So there'll be some expenditures in there still for that, but it's the distance seminars, conferences, and that type of stuff for the APCOs and the NINAs and stuff will all be virtual.
Okay.
If they happen at all. And I also had anticipated sending the leads to a lot more training this year, and we were all scheduled for that, and that's been largely canceled. So
Okay.
yeah, Tele 1 and Tele 2 will be for two people for a week each. And there's the rest of our financial report there. Rachel, do you have anything to add?
no, those were just the big things. If the revenues change, it'll just be because of the transfers that we're having, but I don't think that we're going to be doing quite so many transfers as we had planned. Especially like in our ops account, we have a lot of expenditures that aren't going to go out because of COVID. So we probably won't need to transfer quite so much to supplement for that fund. And then just any big expenditures that are going to end up coming out of our radio reserve will depend on how quickly we get these other things done. But I think we've been kind of consumed a little bit with the big transfer happening for the building. So I know that Deanna's working on some of our radio sites. So as soon as those come in, then we're going to have to make transfers to cover those from sales tax. But everything is already budgeted. So.
Okay.
Any other questions on the financial report? Okay.
No,
Good.
All right. Are we ready to move on to resolutions and ordinances? Item 7.
Yeah, do you want to take that at number 10 or do you want to do it now? It's either way, it doesn't matter.
I guess now is fine.
Okay, so what we have, based on the decisions that were made earlier this year to go with Spillman CAD, been working with Motorola to come up with a plan. And Frank's suggestion was that we would pass a resolution. So he's reviewed the documents that we have for the sole source acquisition request that's there before you. And it gives a justification for it. The advantages of what it does for first responders. And then Frank recommended that we would do a resolution that would establish a sole source provider and authorization of acquisition for the for the Motorola Flex CAD. So all that information is there for you, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I also have Motorola. Brian Wall is on the call if there was additional questions that I was unable to answer. We've been in contact some with Mr. Stoddard as well, as far as some of that, how maintenance and support and how we tie in with the existing CAD system. And there's still a couple of pieces that are missing that we're unable to come to total resolution yet with, and that is our CAD to CAD communication. It's called TELUS. So that would mean that with TELUS, we would have had the opportunity to be able to take a call that happened to be in Columbia County, for example, and it would transfer that call to their screens, their system. We don't have that currently with our current system, with our current version of Intergraph, but it was something that we were moving towards. And so there's still the effort, and Mr. Wall is still working on getting through to that and making sure that we can get those things established as soon as we're able to, when it becomes available.
Okay. Are you looking? I
I
know.
would like to see approval of this resolution.
Okay.
That would allow us to go sole source rather than going through a competitive bidding process, because Motorola Flex CAD is the option that we would be looking for, that would be fully integrated with the records management systems, with the jail, with all of law enforcement agencies, and with records.
Okay. Guess I would entertain a motion if there's no questions at this time.
So Joe,
Yes.
I guess for the record, I've got individuals that were on the fire TAC, and to let folks know that they're upset because there hasn't been fire TAC meetings and a continuation of conversation and evaluation post the 911 Public Authority meeting where CCSO made their presentation. So, their feeling is that it was pretty much a done deal, and that it was very LE driven, as well as I've gone through the sole source documentation, and it does showcase challenges for LE, but it is very lacking as to potential challenges or issues from the fire EMS side. So I'm a little concerned, as to sole sourcing something that is specific to one discipline and not all.
Okay.
I don't have necessarily an argument or a statement against or for what Chief Letzo says, but with Spillman, we do have interfaces that will interface with ERS. Is that correct, Vic, that you use is Emergency Records Systems, ERS?
Yeah, and we have an interface with under the current system. So
Correct. No, I was just making a statement that we are doing. Spillman does have an interface to tie in with ERS. It also has an interface to interface with Longview's and Cowlitz 2's records management system. Right off the top of my head, I'm on a blank.
Yeah, and again, I'm just making comment for the record. I mean, this is going to happen, so I'm just putting that comment out there.
Yeah. Understood. Thank you, Vic.
And as far as the sole source piece, Motorola is the owner of Spillman, right? Or the manufacturer of Spillman, whatever that would be. There's no other company that makes that software, correct?
Yeah, it's a Motorola product.
Okay. So they truly are a sole source then.
Yes.
Okay.
I can't find anybody else no other vendors that provide FlexCAD, Motorola FlexCAD as a application.
Right. You have to go directly through Motorola for it.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would move approval then of the sole source for the FlexCAD.
Second.
I think I heard Kurt second that first. Okay, we have a motion and a second then to approve the sole source. Is there other discussion at this time? Okay, I just made a quick check for any hands raised online. Don't see any. If there's no further discussion, I'd ask for all those in favor say aye.
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 And is there any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
So the timing on that is that we would anticipate that we would be able to, we're going to negotiate an agreement, a contract. We'll negotiate a contract with Motorola, and then have that before the board. I'd like to have that before the board in September. And then our timing for that is to be able to start the installation, the integration, the training and everything, and make that a go live program when we move into the new 911 center. So that would be, I'm anticipating January of 2022.
Okay, thank you, Phil.
Motorola felt that timeline was a good timeline for them as well.
All right,
Makes sense.
we're ready for item 8. Approval to negotiate a contract with an IT consultant.
So we sent out an RFQ for this IT consultant work, and we received three responses to that. And one of them, and they were, all three of them were graded by me and Deanna. And of those, 2 received a passing score, and the other 2, or 2 of them received a passing score, the other one didn't. We've sent notification to that participant that we would not be looking at them as a qualified for their qualifications to lead us in this endeavor. And so after interviewing both of those that have met the qualifications, or that we felt best met the qualifications, we interviewed both firms. And one of the firms is AdCom, and AdCom is doing a lot of the work with the architect at the new center. And so they're on contract to do the tower work and the antenna work, the infrastructure work for getting the radio signals, radio equipment, and that emergency services network into the building and as part of the building project. And they would be a very good firm to use for that. Their long-term follow through after the installation of this new network, or the advising on this network, would be less desirable. So, and they also contract for the network piece of that planning with an outside firm, which when we reviewed their qualifications, they were top notch in all the categories, and they had the best score. More Power Technology has a lot of the same benefits, but their experience level in 911 centers is minimal. They're working with Wahkiakum County directly as their IT consultant, and monitoring their system and keeping their systems up and running now for Wahkiakum County. And Wahkiakum County has nothing but good things to say about their responsiveness and their follow through on all the projects. So what I would like to do is to work with both AdCom with their experience level and working in other PSAPs and making sure that, in the building and the changeover of different network systems, I'd like to work with them for their engineering expertise and their experience. And I'd like to also work with More Power Technology to be part of that process too. And then potentially would be able to provide us ongoing support after our center is up and going. Previously, I had mentioned the need to have 2 IT professionals that would be supportive of supporting our network and our software systems and all things IT in our new center when we go live at the location, because county IT would no longer be providing that. And that would likely eliminate at least one of the positions that would be necessary, that I was thinking was necessary to follow through with that, because they have technology and they have programming available where they can monitor systems and alert their staff and their IT people that may be on call to monitor that and keep things up and running as efficiently as if we had a live person here 24/7, 365. So I think there's real value to both organizations, one with their experience level and one with their ongoing support after the fact. And so with board's permission, I would like to meet with both of them and see what kind of a working relationship we could work out with both of them to address our needs, and then come back with the board with a proposal that would indicate that. If there was some reason that they were not agreeable to doing that, I would, my first choice for the transition phase from here to go live would be AdCom. And then we would negotiate with them for that piece that's really missing right now, is that's that transition gap piece that we've identified in IT services in our new center.
And then, so I'm clear, Phil, the long-term IT support, was it the other entity you were hoping to work with?
Yes, they seem to have a lot of their, they're working really closely with Wahkiakum County, and they are fairly new to this PSAP business. And so that was one of my questions and concerns, is that their newness to that However, that their staff and expertise is pretty broad. They, there are 5 people that they had on the call, are basically touching all of the pieces of experts in all of their different individual areas, whether it's network or whether it's within security or whether it's within the network architecture and that type of thing. So they have it. It's just felt better that AdCom is a tried and true and has that expertise, but I wouldn't expect that they're not the type of company that would do the continuing maintenance for an entity. So kind of like is the best of both worlds if we could work with both of them to come up with this transition plan so that more power technology is with us during these stages of planning and getting the work done. And then they would be very familiar with the systems that they would be monitoring after the fact. And I would be so bold to suggest that it would eliminate the need for one of those FTEs.
I really like your suggestion, Phil. I appreciate the work you and Deanna put into this. And I think truly, if it can work out, and I know you still need to have that ongoing dialogue with both parties, it really would be the best of both worlds. And I'd support you on that, at least to engage in that dialogue and see what comes of it. It's a great suggestion.
Yeah, I'd support that as well.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Agreed.
Likewise.
You need a motion on that?
I just, if I need your approval, I guess it would be formal. It would formalize that I have the approval of the board to negotiate an agreement with these firms.
And I would make that motion to move forward as you recommended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Phil to move forward to negotiate IT consultant work. Is there any other discussion on this item?
I would just offer this, that any final document will come back before the board for the board's approval prior to them being awarded any kind of work.
Okay. All right, with that, if there's nothing else on that item, I'd ask for all those in favor, say aye.
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 Is there any opposed?
So this is Kurt. I just have one item. I have to apologize. I have to run to another meeting, so I'm going to have to disconnect from this one at this time. I apologize in that conflict my schedule. Wanted to let you know.
Well, just so you know, Kurt, this next item is at your suggestion is that we would get some of these fiscal policies back before the board, as we've talked with the bonding agent and with our financial advisors and with our general counsel.
And this did come as a recommendation from them as well. I fully support this measure. I mean, it's something that truly benefits the organization as a whole, particularly as we go out into the bond markets.
Okay, thanks, Kurt.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Okay, so that would mean item 9 is up next. Policies.
So
Do we still have a quorum if Kurt's gone?
yeah, you have Chet, you have you or Troy, Joe, Alan, Scott, Andrew Hamilton, Jim Cambites, Bill Lamont. You got 8 still.
Okay, good deal.
So the first one is that fiscal policy.
So yeah, there's two things here. There's a general fiscal policy, and then there is a blanket statement about stabilization reserve policy. And the general fiscal, so some of this was drawn out of the city of Longview's policies, but most of it has been drawn out of Kitsap 911, who we have been using for our kind of as our roadmap as becoming an independent agency from a county entity. And so the policy obligates us. It goes through all of the different discussions about ethics and conflicts of interest, what our budget period is and balancing a budget, what we do with ending fund balances, how we handle grants and staffing levels. So it's doing all of the things that we're doing already. It just provides us a policy of ways to do that rather than, is it fair to say, flying by the seat of our pants? Instead of flying by the seat of our pants, we would just incorporate what we're currently doing, into a policy. And then when somebody comes and asks us, like a bonding agent comes and asks us, what are your fiscal policies? Then we can hand this over to them and they can look at that, and that gives us a better bond rating. Because we're legitimatizing that word, making legitimate what we're doing on an ongoing basis, and it does govern us about how we would do that, and gives an investor in a bond, for example, a greater confidence that we have our act together.
Okay, any questions for Phil? If there are none, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and seconded to approve the general fiscal policy. Any other discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Up next, stabilization reserve fund policy.
So this would establish some reserves, and also it would be also give investors into a bond market greater confidence that we have the ability to pay our outstanding bills. And so what this does, if you look specifically in 2.2, it would say that we would, for our operating budget, that we would maintain a 10% annual. We would maintain 10% of our operating budget in reserve, so that if there was something that came up, that we would be able to, lack of flow of money, for example, say 2 or 3 months of this year was really negative and then sales tax rebounded, there would be that ability to tap into that 10% reserve. What it also does is what it says, plus debt service. Our bonding agent, our fiscal manager, has recommended that it's actually the bonding agent recommended that we would have a year's worth of debt service available. In this case, it would be about $770,000 in reserve, so that we would have a full year of payment ability if, it gives us a chance to regroup, and if the bottom fell out of our revenue stream, and it would give us a chance to regroup and to find another way to fund the 911 center and to make those payments for that year. So that would establish not only a 10% of an operating reserve, but it would also be about a $770,000 in debt service if we finance that $14.5 million in bonds.
Okay,
I'd make a motion that we set aside the reserves as presented by Phil.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the policy, the reserve policy. Is there any other discussion on this item?
The only question I have is that something that's doable?
Yes, it is doable.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Do they take debit cards?
All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Up next would be we already handled item 10, I believe, Phil. That's been completed.
Yeah, we handle that under number 7.
Okay, so that'd move us to the director's report.
So the first thing on the docket is the staffing update. We have one more regularly assigned person who will be regularly assigned on September 1st. So we will now have 19 regularly assigned dispatchers. She's expected to be done with training at the end of this, by the end of August. And what that does, the benefit of that in September, it eliminates 80 hours of overtime. So it was 2 weeks worth of overtime will be covered by one of our new employees. So that's a super good bonus. It's very encouraging. The dispatcher's name is Trista, and she's doing really well. She was hired last November, so almost 10 months worth of training, and she's been doing really well. Well accepted by her peers, and looking forward to having her. We also have 2 other people that are in training now, and both in their going to be entering into their 3rd month, and they're both at different stages. There's been some personal things that came up with one of the hirees where she missed some time. The other one has been, hasn't not missed any time, so she's a little bit further ahead. But both are doing very well and very promising. So that would give us that number 20 and 21. So for our schedule right now for 2021, we will be setting out a schedule with 19 full-time dispatchers to fill those positions. Making progress. And then another thing on staffing side, on the administrative side, previously we had Monique is moving. Her family is moving to Georgia, and she's still working remotely. In the interim, we've been recruiting for that position, and we've interviewed 5 people. We have another interview set tomorrow, but would expect to make a decision fairly soon. We've had some really good candidates apply for that, and so I will overlap. My plan is to overlap Monique and that new HR generalist, provided that we can come to an agreement with somebody for employment, and we would overlap that time so that Monique can train the new HR person. And I would expect that probably by the end of September, if all goes well, that we would have that person working independently, and Monique would be formally resigned.
Okay, thanks, Phil.
We also put a pause on some of the entry-level recruitment, just so that when we do some onboarding of anybody, that it would be in that transition period of Monique and the new hires time together, so that they could see the full extent of everything that's done. Rather than a checklist, they'd also have a checklist and actually doing it, so it would help cement some of that previous experience. So exciting stuff there. Facility, lots of stuff going on right now. We are in the construction documents phase. As you know, we had a special property use hearing with the city of Longview, and we were given that special property use permit. Subsequently, we have issued an eviction notice on a barn. So that needs to be removed, and that's slated to, we'll be ready to have that October 1st. And right now we're working with the city of Longview on, again, access during construction and that type of thing, and how we're going to access the site. We're continuing to work with Lowe's. We should have an answer back from Lowe's by the end of this week on our permanent easement for the property. Everything's been progressing well that way, so I would expect that it would continue that way, barring some unforeseen event that took place. And so we're working very closely with the city of Longview now on that lease agreement for that property and access and how we might do that. Again, a lot of stuff happening in that regard. Any questions about the facility or staffing? Okay, I'll keep on. Climate and culture continues to be an area that we work on. Transparency, loyalty, integrity are things that we continue to talk about and to work with staff on all of the time, some of our core characteristics and our core attributes. And it feels like we're moving in the right direction. Seems like everybody is on board and really wanting to Cowlitz 911 to be a shining star and continue in that environment. So that's really encouraging as well. The last thing is radio infrastructure. We are working with Day Wireless on the very last few things of dotting our I's and T's, crossing the T's on our contracts with them to get that work started. We do have the poll for Cowlitz 2 started. We need to work with a property use agreement with Cowlitz 2. We're moving forward with some of the moves of equipment that's up in Castle Rock. And we also are, the Woodland and the Deer Island sites are both being worked on, but we had a little bit more work some more planning work to do on that to make sure that we had all our ducks in a row before we started the work on that. So we're getting closer on that every day. Are there any questions about any of these things? Okay, either everybody's microphone isn't working or everybody's happy with the way things are going. Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Do we have anything under old business to discuss? All right. Not hearing anything. Is there anything under board comments or board committee reports?
The Law TAC is going to have the next meeting on September 8th. This month, everybody's been on vacation, so there hasn't been a meeting.
Okay, thank you, Troy. Do we have any need for executive session today, Phil?
None.
None. Okay. Thank you. And so if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'll give it one last chance in case anybody has anything. If not, we will go ahead and adjourn. I hope everybody has a great day.
You too.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, everybody.